Flo has asked me to come to present the beginnings of SEDA, going back to the 1990s, and Sandy has very kindly given me a whole pile of SEDA magazines going back right to the very beginning. So I've been reading through them, and yeah, so it's just a few insights into what's the beginnings of SEDA. But before, as we know, SEDA started in 1991, but before that, there was, I just kind of like wanting to set the scene. From the 1970s, there were environmental, there were talks about environment, poverty, just lots of different disasters. Only One Earth was published in 1972, ahead of the first UN talk on environment and development, a conference on environment and development. So that was informing that UN conference. But we were like, in the 1980s, we had the Exxon oil spill as well, which was the biggest one in history at that time. And I think, there had been some before, but had been quite a lot, and the oil had drifted 1,500 miles along beautiful beaches, and really contaminated a lot of land. And most of the animals, the land animals and the sea animals around that area, they sadly perished as well. It was quite a thing. And we were hearing lots about poverty and drought and people starving in Africa. We had Live Aid, we had lots of activism going on. We had Earth Day started in 1970. We had Friends of the Earth as well, who set up in the 70s, Greenpeace. There was just all sorts of different campaign groups that were campaigning for a better world, a better society. And it's also, quite interesting as well. The cover of Only One Earth is showing the Earth from space as we see it, and that was a new image that we were seeing from the late 1960s as well. It was the first time we've been able to see our planet as one whole, and what we were doing to it. And I thought that, people were, what are we doing with our planet? What are we, what are we doing? There's extinction of wildlife. There's all sorts of things. So two friends got together in Edinburgh, Howard Liddell and Sebastian Tombs, who got together one night in 1990 in a pub in Edinburgh and had a chat over what they think that SEDA could, what do you think, that they could do? And then that gave light to SEDA, which emerged in 1991, which was set up to widen and deepen the awareness of its membership for the design of buildings and products that are healthy for both the environment and users. So this was really linking back to what had been happening and what we've been seeing happening for quite some time. The aim was to increase public awareness and to campaign and to educate people on ecological design, about man-made environments in Scotland. And SEDA was run entirely by volunteers, and that was always the whole idea. And behind a group of, there were a group of founder members as well, quite a big group. And out of that, there was the first steering group was established with Howard as chair, David Sutherland, Sebastian Tombs, and Wilfred Bonn. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Sandy. Yep. And so they became the face of SEDA at that time. And just the image there is the very first newsletter of SEDA, which is highlighting some of the activities that had taken place and welcoming the membership into SEDA. And right from the beginning, that there had been tours that they had started and talking and sharing information. So on the slide, you can see like a detail of a building, quite highly insulated at the time as well. There was the Steiner School, Aberfeldy Studios as well. and a trip up to Findhorn. So the members were very active and had started travelling around to learn from other people as well as from each other. So through all these newsletters, I've kind of mapped each year the different events and tours which I picked up that were written about in the newsletters. So the aim of the newsletter was, I suppose, casting your mind back as well. It was before the internet. It was before we could reach everybody in their homes. You know, we had postal service then, you know, so everything was being posted out to members, and the members were far and wide across Scotland right from the very beginning. So it was really important that the newsletters told people about all of the events, and they all had write-ups of the events that were happening to keep people informed and to encourage new members in. So I've mapped these, and the blue ones are the kind of tours and the visits that SEDA had organised. So they actively went away, usually for a weekend, and went to visit lots of different places. And the ones that I've shown in green are really the talks which are held in local areas, so Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, you know, Aberdeen. So those were all talks. So there was a lot of information to go through, and you can see that they had a very, very active schedule as well. And I know that's quite small, so there were so many things on it. But so I decided that what I would do is just pull out some of the tours and some of the talks, just so that you can get a feel for what they did. So SEDA Tours, so the members travelled to different pockets of Scotland. They went to Edinburgh, they went to visit the Scottish borders, the Highlands and Islands, they went down into England, but then through the SEDA membership, Sweden and Denmark, that was a tour led by Colin, who's here in the room as well, with the SSEG, who was very, very closely collaborated with SEDA. And Sandy and Howard went to represent SEDA in New Zealand and South Africa as well. So SEDA's voice was heard across the globe. Topics of the tours, they ranged from visiting houses and schools and renewables and solar, wind, but also included landscapes, from landscape roundabouts to woodlands as well. So that they could see how that, so they could have a look at all different types of different environments as well. But there was also exhibitions, and this was something that SEDA was very good at, that I noticed. There was exhibitions of SEDA member work and student member work every year. When Sandy became chair of SEDA in the later part of the 1990s, there was an exhibition that travelled around Scotland and also down into London as well. So there was a big presence all of the time as well. And I think it was quite good as well, showing the student work, and there was a pre-showing of the student work that had been submitted, and then there was an exhibition of the winning student works as well, which was really important to help to encourage the growth of the students. So one of the visits that I thought I'd pull out so I could find a nice picture online, because obviously I wasn't at any of these, was in the Scottish borders. So there was a weekend visit to the Scottish borders, where they had visited Blainsea, Tim Stead's studio and his house, which he crafted this house from the local timber, and he's had a wood workshop next door, and lived there as well, and had a turf roof as well. But also you can see here as well that it's not a very clear picture up there, but Howard there in a bike being pushed on by some of the members as well. They went to visit a cycle shop in the borders as well, and the cycle shop, all the way back, this is 1992 on this field trip, and this cycle shop was set up with accessible bikes for people to come and use. So So there was, you know, a lot of different activities. On this tour as well, they went off to a permaculture garden, which they, Graham Bell, who you see in that picture, so he developed a 0.2 acre permaculture garden in the Scottish borders as well. And so everybody that was on that tour had lunch at the permaculture garden and then learnt lessons from Graham Bell on how to design the permaculture way, which was his first publication as well. But Graham asked SEDA to say a few words about each of the members that were on that trip. And I think it was 26 SEDA members that were there on that day. But as people introducing themselves, the article notes that when Graham asked us to each to say a few words about ourselves, it became evident that we were a group with wide interests from a range of disciplines such as landscape, architecture, marketing, engineering, forestry, and cabinet making. It seemed that SEDA's aim to be multidisciplinary was working well, which was great to have so many different people come together from such an early start of SEDA as well. But then in 1992 as well, like SEDA was a new organisation, and Wilfred had written to the Scottish office that we had then and to ask for some money to help to fund events that were being planned. Being a new organisation, it was very tricky. The membership was not particularly large. It was around about 58 members at that time. So SEDA had an aim right from the outset that all events had to wash their face. And so they sought funds which they thought would be for 3 years, that they would need it for 3 years. So they were granted a 50% grant of £1,400, which SEDA had to match fund using money raised from sponsorships and membership, and which allowed lots of the different events to take place. And I just took a page out of one of the magazines to show how, this one I think was 1998, to show how busy SEDA were with activities in the 1990s. And this is, you know, these newsletters were quarterly, so written quarterly, and you can see the amount of different things where the SEDA were present. The SEDA also then applied for a grant in 1993, 1994 to develop the technical information side of the SEDA activities, which they got again, £1,400, which was brilliant. And so that helped to fund quite a lot of the activities that were taking place as well. In 1994, there was a focus on creating a series of events, and there was a series, and it was kind of overall titled Elemental Series, and it was a huge success where there were members came from everywhere. They were held in different locations as well around Scotland, and they covered earth, air, fire, and water. The ether, the fifth element, was added as well, because there needed to be more of a philosophical discussion about ecological design as well, and the ether side of things, that's where that came in. Yeah, and I've already said that the events were held across Scotland, different locations, because SEDA was really aware of how the membership was dispersed all across Scotland and wanted people to be engaged in person with some of the events as well. So a lot of the events were in person. Lots of events people could get to in person as well. But the official launch of SEDA, after they'd set up the constitution and registered the charity, the official launch happened in 1993. And it was opened by the housing minister, the Minister for Education and Housing, Lord James Douglas Hamilton. And he gave a long speech, and in the SEDA newsletter for that time as well, all the speeches for the opening of SEDA have been recorded, so they are all written up within that newsletter. But in it, he noted that SEDA had already forged links with like-minded groups at home and abroad, by acting as an information exchange, SEDA will promote an awareness in Scotland of the work that is going on around the world, but also within Scotland, within our own borders. And Ulrich as well, he gave the second talk, and there were many different things that he discussed, but he really emphasized that the concept of waste and the idea of away is human. It's a human, it's our human thinking, but that they don't really exist in reality. And he noticed that, spelling mistake, our design from now on must fit into the cycles of nature. And Howard as well, he spoke after Ulrich, and he noted that the challenges of SEDA, his talk was titled SEDA the Challenge, because he saw it as a challenge of people accepting the practice as well. But the aim was to bring about debate. And I think that SEDA did that really well. And yeah, which has attracted all of us into SEDA as well. But after this event as well, there was SEDA's first technical seminar, which was same day as, I think it was the same day or the following day of the launch. And this was the vital spark, and it was talking about electromagnetic fields in the environment. And this was a topic, that was, which was talked about quite frequently at that time as well. And Dr. Coghill had said, that it is hard to prove any direct causal relationship between EMFs and diseases and syndromes such as cancer, ME, cot deaths, and even AIDS. But it seems increasingly clear that some association does indeed exist. And this is really relevant today, and we're not really talking about EMFs and the different fields, and we're surrounded by so many of them today. And we don't know what harm they're doing. The technology is involved so much. So yeah, electro pollution was discussed quite frequently, and other topics such as the green treatment of timber, eco-labelling was a very big topic that SEDA addressed. Green money, green planning, permaculture was throughout the 90s, so many events on permaculture, even grafting tree nuts, basket weaving, woodland walks, collecting thinnings from woodlands and using them within workshops. So there were lots of hands-on stuff. And I'd already mentioned as well about the exhibitions of SEDA members' work and the student competitions. But the technical inquiry service was a new service that came on in 1995. And this saw SEDA and Robert Gordon University join together and to recruit a project officer for the role of information database and a technical inquiry service. And that was originally funded by the Scottish Office and Robert Gordon University. So it was based up in Aberdeen. But then in 1997, the project officer role moves down into Edinburgh and joins forces with the Gaia group in the monastery. After 3 years, the information service was self-sufficient, and it was funded by the Gaia group, other sponsors, SEDA founder members, and Inveresk architects and builders. And there was a whole range of topics, from some of the articles that were written, the project officer would give a little rundown of some of the things that were discussed. But PVC-free cabling and worktops were very big, but also about people wanting to learn about solar power with photovoltaics and air ionization as well. But yeah, SEDA collaborated far and wide. They had very close collaborations with the Scottish Solar Energy Group, and we still collaborate to this day. They collaborated across the construction industry. Even I found this is a rubbish photo, I'm sorry. Yeah, I found this flyer in one of the magazines, which was Falkirk College advertising vocational training for women in eco design. So I'm seeing a lot of repetition and cycles happening through what was happening in the 1990s. And SEDA was also given a shout out in Learning for Life, which was a Scottish Office report, which was referring to SEDA as a source of expertise and activity concerning ecological building design in Scotland. And so SEDA were clearly doing their job. In 1995, we went on the web, and the magazine started to provide web links for people who surfed the net. In those days, we had dial-up internet, which was very slow and very painful sometimes to get on. But all of these addresses were lots of the different addresses were given across the world. So in America and across in Germany and Sweden and all over the world. And of course, there was a link as well to the Scottish Ecological Design Association when they started to have their own web presence in 1995, which was hosted by Robert Gordon University initially. Yeah, there were book reviews, lots of book reviews. So I've taken a snapshot of some of the books that were reviewed. This is just a tiny sample of what there were. I mean, some of them we already know of, some that Sandy has talked in the Howard Liddell Memorial Lectures with the Schumacher and Rachel Carson. And there were so many different things covering wastewater, covering green building handbooks, covering permaculture, finance systems. Yeah, there's the state of Scotland compared to Scandinavia, all sorts of different books. And, these are easily available, you can still get them today. So it's, it was quite an enlightenment having a look and going back to all of these. So, yeah. So I'm just going to return back to my first slide, if I may. And, only one Earth. And we talk about that we're living as though we've got 3 planets. And so in the time since SEDA set up, we're still, as a society, exploiting the Earth. We're exploiting the animals that live on the Earth. We're exploiting ourselves. We're affecting our own health through some of the creations that we have. And since the 1989 oil disaster, there have been 60 other oil spills around the world. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I can see that, there's still a role for SEDA to play, and that we need to, still keep up the same presence going forward as we have since the 1990s. So I think that's me.